It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley are here. A victory lap for Mr. Thurrott. Microsoft confirms what he said all along. Windows 10 S, it's just an S mode. Microsoft in education, we'll talk about 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 new Windows builds as we approach the Spring Creators Update, and a whole lot more coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit. Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley, episode 560, recorded Wednesday, March 7th, 2018. Windows a la S mode. Windows Weekly is brought to you by WordPress. Reach more customers when you build your business website on WordPress.com. Plans start at just $4 a month. Get 15% off any new plan purchase at WordPress.com/Windows. And by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Home plays a big role in your life. That's why Quicken Loans created Rocket Mortgage. It lets you apply simply and understand the entire mortgage process fully so you can be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. Get started at RocketMortgage.com/Windows. It's time for Windows Weekly, a snowbound Windows Weekly this week with Mary Jo Foley. She won't be able to leave her Manhattan apartment until spring.
Well, if the snow goes high enough, she can just walk out the window.
I could.
Step out. She, of course, writes for ZDNet. Her blog is at allaboutmicrosoft.com. Paul Thurrott, he's in snowbound southern Macungie Valley.
Close enough.
I'll never get it right. And he is, of course, at Thurrott.com, and his book's at leanpub.com. And we are here. We are gathered today to dissect 15 new Windows Insider updates.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
How many came out all of a sudden?
In the past week, I think 3, right?
Jeez Louise.
It's been quiet for a while, too, and now I think they're winding it down. Actually, Kevin Gallo today said the words feature complete, which I thought was kind of interesting.
That gives me chills all up and down my back.
He meant the developer features.
Did he mean the SDK, or did he mean the OS itself?
Oh, well,
when he said feature complete.
That's a good question.
No one knows.
I don't think he meant either specifically, but I think you're right that the SDK is the more relevant.
Well, let's start with the top story of the week, which is not that, but we will get to that. But Windows 10 S, and I'm actually very interested in this because I've ordered a new Windows computer with 10S on it. The new HP NVX2 comes next week.
Yeah, don't get too used to it, Leo. It's going away.
But not really.
Not really. So the Surface laptop comes with 10S, and then that was the expensive one with 10S. And then were a lot of supposedly education level inexpensive computers with 10S. Were there a lot of? First of all, did those ever come out?
Well,
we don't really know.
So yes and no. The way we have an education thing coming up, but actually, let's hold on to that because that's part of the education.
Hold
story.
that thought.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But who was it? Was it Panos Panay or who was it that revealed the truth? The truth of Windows 10S.
It was
Joe Brad and I actually.
A month ago.
A month ago.
Let's go backwards.
Oh, that's right.
Let's
Joe
say what
Belfiore tweeted.
Most recently. Yeah. So yesterday, somebody asked Joe Belfiore about Windows 10S in schools, and so he says, next year, Windows 10S will be a, quote, mode of existing versions, not a distinct version, which we already knew, but
interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, but
the part we didn't know.
Good to get confirmation.
The part we didn't know, though, and I want to hear what you think about this, is next year.
Yeah. You're going to like my theory on this one. I think you're going to enjoy this. Yeah, because we had last month on Thurrott.com, we published the story about Windows 10S going away, and then them making an S mode available on all of the mainstream versions of Windows 10, right? Which is what he basically just confirmed. Now, the documentation that we saw very clearly said this was happening this year, and maybe I should go back and look at it, I guess, but I sort of assumed or assume now that this meant as soon as the version of Windows 10 that's about to ship next month, right, or this coming month, 1803. And the reason I assume that is because if you're in the beta, in the Windows Insider program, that's what it says now. The branding has changed in the product. It doesn't say Windows 10S. It says Windows 10 Pro in S mode. So logical assumption. Anyway, as Mary Jo pointed out, he said next year. I think because he's a Microsoft executive, he's thinking in terms of fiscal years. No, I really think they think this way. Right?
I thought you were going to give a different explanation. I thought you were going to say because he's a Microsoft executive, he's going to pad the date and under promise.
No. I think he literally thinks in terms of the fiscal year. Everything that Microsoft does in a given year hinges on that June 30th date.
That's true.
The big stuff, the big changes often come in July, right after that change. That's in time for the back to school season. It's in time for the next version of Windows 10. That's my guess. I think he actually meant the next fiscal year.
My other guess when I saw him tweet that was maybe he meant not all of the versions of Windows 10 will have it until next year. So, Pro and Enterprise will get it first, and then IoT maybe later, and then HoloLens and blah. I don't know.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah, but it's kind of crazy that this story keeps becoming a story because as we were talking on a recent Windows Weekly, we talked about Windows 10 Pro S mode last summer. Like we knew that was the name of this. So we already knew this was a mode, right? Like it's not new that it's a mode. It's always been a mode.
Yeah, but they've kind of promoted it as its own thing, and
they did. They muddied the waters. Yeah.
And Leo, partly that's so they can charge $50 to change modes.
Well, right? Okay, so that's a rather cynical viewpoint, Leo. I would.
But if it's just a switch, then why do they charge so much for that?
I think we should talk about that a little bit because I think the original plan. Well, who knows what the original plan was? But the way they sort of said it was, look, we're going to give you X amount of time. They extended the amount of time to get Pro for free. Like we want people to try this thing and know that they can get back and it'll be fine. I don't believe that any mass number of people have stayed on Windows 10S. I just don't think it's happened. And so,
what was that number you saw in the document? Like 60% stayed on it, right? Like 60% on third-party devices or something.
Yeah, but what's 60% of zero? Because there are no third-party devices. I mean, it's such a small number.
I know. It's
yeah, you're right. It was crazy. I don't look. There's a lot of numbers they published that it just.
I know.
I don't know where they come from. That Edge active user thing, which is mathematically impossible. I mean, they do stuff like this all the time.
No, you're right.
That one really, sorry, you're really throwing me. Confronted by that again, it's like it's make my brain hurt.
It's like 60%.
So the way Windows 10S is today is it's a one-way trip. You can get back to Windows 10S if you have a recovery partition or a recovery drive or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible on your PC Leo's about to get. I don't know how it's set up. I don't know how it'll work. It is possible that if he went to Pro, he wouldn't be able to get back unless he downloaded some kind of a recovery thing from HP.
That's what I had to do on the Surface laptop, right?
That's right. Yep. And at least on the Surface laptop, you can download it, right? The way the HP thing works, probably, although it's hard to say because it's an ARM device and it's running S, but HP has their own software. No, actually, they don't. They use PC Reset. I strongly recommend using HP's tool if it's there, and then Microsoft's regardless to make backups just in case, because you want to be able to get back. You never know. Right. But to Leo's point, I do think that the word mode suggests something you can flip on and off.
Right.
It is possible on Windows 10 Pro today to flip a switch in settings that basically puts it in S mode, meaning no longer allow me to download apps from the store, from anything other than the store.
Yeah.
You can turn it off. It's an easy thing. It's not but I like the idea of a mode. I like the idea of it being a thing. In fact, I kind of wish I could do this right now. If you want all the benefits of Windows 10S, but you want to run Chrome, install Chrome and then put it in S mode. And then you kind of get this additional layer of protection there. It's not just about I'm too dumb not to install apps by myself. There's more to it than that, right? Because it's It's doing other things to prevent Win32 apps from running. Malicious code could run from the web or something. So it's preventing that kind of thing.
If you say you moved from Windows 10s to Windows 10 Pro, you download Chrome. Then when you go back to Windows 10s, wouldn't it remove Chrome?
It would, but what I'm saying, yes, it doesn't remove it. It just doesn't work anymore.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that this is an acceptable middle ground. In other words, if it was a true mode switch, if you already have it installed, this is my way of saying to the system, I want this thing in there. Let it happen. This is what I've been asking for all along, just in a slightly different format. I think that would be great. I mean,
but then they couldn't charge $50 for it because it's just a switch.
Oh, that was the thing. Yeah. So I wanted. So like we were saying, that the plan is unclear what it really was, but the way they said it was, after X amount of days, you'll have to pay for this upgrade, $50 or whatever. That was on Pro. The documentation what we saw said that if you go from home in S mode just to home, there is no charge, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's
okay.
Yeah, and that's great, right? Because
that's who's going to buy an S mode machine. Frankly, is people who use Windows.
That's right.
Home.
That little
I never
HP
understood
envy
the Pro thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and
except
they're making other
first line workers.
Right.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, but they don't get choices. I mean, those guys are being handed something that's a tool. They're not, do you want to run Pro or S?
I can't remember. Is the NVX2 Home, Windows Pro, Windows Home, or Windows Pro?
No, because it's the current version of the product. What you're really getting is Windows 10 Pro in S mode.
Right.
You'll upgrade and get Pro.
Okay. Yeah,
but it's Pro running on ARM, so you won't get all of the Pro features like Hyper-V and so forth.
What did I get? What?
Well, because it's running on ARM, there are certain features that are not available.
What?
No, come on.
What?
You knew this.
What would I get? What? Just quickly. Is it something important?
I believe. It could be to you. I know that Hyper-V is not on there.
No.
I could be wrong on this one, but I don't believe the Linux subsystem stuff is there.
Oh, that could model. That could be.
I could be wrong about that one. But,
I can't remember on that.
Well, it doesn't matter anyway. Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
I know. But I still think, and this is just a guess on my part, but my guess is they are still going to charge to move once they do this whole official mode plan. I think there is going to be a cost for everybody except home, probably, because why does Microsoft do this? They're doing it for the money, right? And so I think if you get
again, so cynical. So cynical.
I know. No, but I mean, if you get Windows, if you buy Windows 10 Pro and it has an S mode and you get your PC shipped in S mode and you upgrade to non-S mode or move to it, as they like to say, I think they're going to charge you to do that. I do.
Okay. I logically, I think you're right, but I think you can also make a great case for that. Doesn't make any sense. You're not going from home to Pro where you're getting additional features. I realize there are technically additional features. You're getting the ability to run desktop apps, but you being in S mode is better for the entire community of Windows users because it's safer. It's better for Microsoft then. Microsoft is better off if you stay in this. They should pay you to stay in S mode, frankly. I mean, that should be a subscription service I charge back to them. But I think there's a good case to be made that it doesn't make sense for them to charge you for that. I agree with you, however, that they are always looking for new ways to monetize Windows.
Yeah.
And this is definitely going to be one of them. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, my guess is they're going to try to get OEMs to ship every device with some version that starts out in S. And then users pay to upgrade.
Now, I'd have to go back and look at the documentation again, but there was a bunch of charts of numbers and prices and things. And the one I remember very distinctly is that on the home side, OEMs didn't save any money by going with S mode. I think on the Pro side they did.
Yeah.
And that speaks to the $50, and it maybe speaks to the not an upgrade price on the home thing. I mean, maybe that's
the one I can see them not doing it on is home. The one I can see them not doing it on is home, but all the other ones I can see them doing it.
But they would need to incent PC makers somehow to install this thing, because anyone with a brain in their head trying to install a product is not going to take the crippled version.
Sell it to them cheaper.
Well, unless they sell it to them cheaper, but they're not.
Right. No, but say HP, hey, If you ship this with Windows 10 Pro, but you started out in S mode, we'll charge you $70 per copy.
Yeah.
But if you started out in Pro,
that's
90.
I mean on home. I mean on the home side. So in other
on
words,
the home, no.
One of the big goals with what Microsoft is doing with Windows for the next year is making the mainstream part of the market grow again, right? So we've seen growth in premium PCs, gaming PCs, and so forth. Yeah, those are the type of PCs that historically have come with Pro, and so there is that upsell factor there. Yeah. With home, it's a little trickier. These devices are a lot less expensive in some cases, and they aren't charging more for full home. So how do you convince a PC maker when you can't give them a savings on the OS to still ship the one that doesn't work as well? Yeah. It's a tough one. Yeah. Okay. We'll say this, talking to Leo about his machine there, it has occurred to me that one of my big complaints about Windows 10S last year is that no one ever came through on a decent-looking PC that ran this thing, except for Surface Laptop. Remember, we were promised there were going to be more of these things. And it's running on ARM. That's kind of the big thing with this release in many ways. But actually, the second big thing is this is a really nice-looking computer that's going to run Windows 10S. And we haven't seen one of those ever, except for Surface Laptop. Right. So it's actually notable on two levels.
And then Leo has bought both of them. Leo's such a sucker. He's actually bought both of them. I'm looking forward to it because what's weird, though, is it's £1.50 without the keyboard. It's 2.5 pounds with the keyboard. How heavy is that keyboard? That's weird.
It kind of snakes around the machine. It's
a case, really.
It does the kickstand bit.
The kickstand's probably what weighs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I like it that it comes with a pen. That's cool. It's 12 inches. I know Paul hates that idea.
I wish I could. I've always wanted to use something small. Remember back in the days of Windows CE, they had those things that were the little machines that were basically just the keyboard, and then the screen was the size of a keyboard. Yeah. It's kind of an HPC, I think it was called handheld PC.
I was a big Scion user. Remember the Scion?
Yeah, same type of thing. Yeah. I always dreamt about carrying something like that around and working on it.
This is my kind of fantasy. I'm going to have Skype. I have a Skype phone number. Yeah. I'm going to have my Google Voice ring that. So this will be a phone in effect.
Right. The problem for me is I'm not like a Japanese schoolgirl. I'm a giant hulking gorilla man, and I have humongous hands. And I can't use machines like that.
Well, I don't have small fingers. I'm probably not quite like your humongous fingers, but I have sausage fingers, and so I'll let you know. I'll give you feedback. You don't. I bought it so you didn't have to.
It looked great to me. The keyboard cover looked great.
The sad thing is this is really designed for the 5G era. In the 5G era, if that ever should occur, if 5G even means anything. You talked about this last week, the notion that you don't need storage. It's only have 128 gigs of storage, but you don't need that because all your stuff's in the cloud, and it's as if it were local because of 5G. Everywhere you go, you're bathed
I got to be honest. That today is already true for me, and I think it is for Mary Jo as well. Like I don't know exactly what's on your laptop per se, but
not much.
Any given not much. I mean, any given machine I have. It's a handful of applications. I'm syncing 3 folders worth of data, most of which is text. 128 is more than enough. I'm compulsive enough and kind of a techie, geeky loser enough that I want as much RAM as I can get and I want more storage. But the truth is I never put anything on it. And, that machine that Leo is getting, other than my preferences for screen size and so forth, I mean,
it's kind of a dream machine.
Fine.
Yeah, it could be a dream machine. We'll see. It only has one port, a USB-C port.
But the MacBook falls into this category as well. I mean, it's just too small for me. But
it's a Mac. It might be for me a MacBook with a decent keyboard. Again, but we'll have to just wait and see. Now, Mary Jo, I want you to go down to 3rd and 45th right now. 45th Street and 3rd Avenue right now.
Why? What's happening?
Because T-Mobile, it's only in a 4-block area, is trying out this new LAA thing, which is
that's amazing.
This licensed assisted access. What it does is it blends 5G bandwidth with its regular cell bandwidth. And PC Magazine got 500 megabits down.
Oh yeah,
and 50 up. 50 up.
I know, I saw that.
But you have to go to 45th and 3rd Avenue.
I know. Which isn't far from here. It would take me 5 minutes
I know.
to get there.
I mean, I was thinking, is that near Rattle and Hum? It might be. It's Midtown,
It's
right?
not far. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't recommend going today, by the way, but yeah,
there might be some others there.
Well, no, there's a snowstorm happening outside.
Well, that's why you should go today, because there'll be nobody there.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can be freezing. But I think this is what to me makes this always. It's battery life plus always on high speed. That would make a very and it's big, but it's not so big that you would be adverse to carrying it.
It just makes the whole thing seamless.
I'm intrigued by it. Yeah.
Me too. And I realized we didn't put this in our notes, but as of this week, you also can, if you're a consumer, pre-order Surface Pro with LTE built in.
I saw that.
And it will be shipping in early May.
But that's Intel based. That's the existing Surface Pro. They've just finally released the LTE. Yeah.
Right. Yep. But it brings up this whole idea, and it was funny because I saw people asking this in my Twitter timeline. They were saying, half the people were like, "Oh, I can't wait to get this because I really want something with built-in wireless, so I always can get on the network wherever I am." Other people are like, "Why?"
You have you have a phone, right? That's the idea.
Yeah,
right? You have
that was the idea. It was like, wait, I could do this.
Are we also reaching kind of a weird pushback era where a lot of people are saying, maybe being connected to everything all the time isn't the greatest thing in the world?
Yeah, maybe.
But this is kind of goofy, but semi-related. I use different computers around the house at night or whatever, and there's a couple that I go to a lot. One is Surface Laptop, which I just love, and there's something about it. It's just the whole experience, the typing, the trackpad, the screen, whatever. But lately, for some reason, the standby, I guess it's the resume really, the wake up feature or whatever, is coming on more quickly than it used to. And it's something I never noticed. I never thought anything of it. You open the screen, it comes up. Well, the way that it works is, as you open the lid, and as it's coming up, you can see it lighting the keyboard. The screen has already come on. And by the time I have it open to where I can actually see it, it's sitting there waiting for me to log in. And it was already there before I even opened it. I mean, it's that fast. And I think that the machine you're getting, that's one of the promises of this kind of thing, right? 20-something hours of battery life. You open the thing, it's just on in less than a second, or whatever the amount of time is. And you're always connected if that's what you want. And maybe that is
like
a revelation.
Phone. It's basically a phone running Windows.
It is. Yeah.
Right?
A phone running Windows. What an idea, Leo.
Just don't call it a Surface phone.
We'll put tiles on the screen. It's a great idea.
Well, and that's another thing. I wonder how much I'll use it in tablet mode. It might really be. It might lend itself to that very well, right?
Interesting. And when you do make this conversion, I'm going to buy a Mac, and I'm just going to call it a day.
Well, it turns out that most of the things I do these days, and I bet you I'm not alone in this, really don't require any given operating system.
That's exactly right. I just had that little. In fact, I just took notes on this. I've been watching how I do things on different machines. I could use even a Chromebook, but certainly a Mac, maybe even Linux, although I don't spend a lot of time in Linux, to get what I need to, the stuff that I do day to day. I could absolutely do on any of those things.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost to the point where you could do it on an iPad Pro, almost,
Yeah.
Or a Windows 10S machine.
No, not that one. See, that one is a piece of garbage.
Well, that's the thing. I think because having looked before, I know it felt like I bought it very impulsively, and I did on the show last week. But I also retrospectively did some back of the envelope things about what I would be doing with it, and unfortunately, I do have to switch off S. Yeah. Because I want, well, it's not that I guess Chrome would be one thing. I mean, it's a programming environment that I want to use that I can only download from the internet.
Yeah.
And then I kind of need, if it doesn't have the Linux subsystem for Windows, then I will have to get Cygwin or something to put a terminal on it. Because that's the point. If I have a terminal,
someone might know.
I have a browser, and I can do everything in the cloud. I don't really. Yeah. I won't be living in Windows particularly. That's why I can almost survive on an iPad. Not quite. iPad is Apple's equivalent of 10s. It's limited to the App Store, so I can't quite. Although there's a good terminal
lack of
app.
A pointer like a mousey kind of thing makes the iPad tough for me, just because I write mostly, so typing is fine. But
no, you're right.
There's little things you just do that you don't realize you're doing, and when it's there, you miss.
So 10S will not support the Linux subsystem. I was just going
to look that up. Okay.
Yeah. Nope. So I'll be putting some other terminal program on there. Gosh, you'd think there'd be. Even the iPad has a superb terminal program, command line program for it, so you can SSH into another system, and then I would be using that system's command line and doing all.
I wonder if they ever will support it. It doesn't support it now, but will they ever? I don't know.
Let me ask the vast audience if Cygwin is still the only other way to really do a decent terminal.
Is Cygwin still a thing?
God, it's so old. You would think there'd be something, even like I mean, literally, there's a terminal program in the iOS App Store. Why isn't there a good terminal program in the Windows Store? You would think.
There should be like a Unix environment, I think, called Coherent.
Oh, I'll look at that. Yeah, I remember Coherent. Yeah.
I think that's old, though. I mean.
But that's old, too. I guess you don't.
You could program in Lattice C.
I had Lattice C. Wow, that's a memory. God, I forgot about that. I had the Whitesmith C compiler, my first C compiler.
Yeah, that's back when C compilers used to come with a bound book. Like, what do you call this thing? A ring binding?
Yeah, this thick.
With the whole pages. Yeah, the thing was like 2 inches thick.
You had to compile all the libraries. You didn't. It was basically a super simple base C compiler that you then bootstrapped up.
It might have been no,
it wasn't pre-KNR. But it was pre-C++, pre-Strustrip.
Yeah. It was ANSI, no, so pre-ANSI, I guess. Like KNR was
it was pre-ANSI. Yeah,
I think that's what it was.
Yeah. So anyway, I will be. I guess I could use putty, huh? That's just
an awful lot of thought for just.
It is.
Well, but you see, understand, a computer for me is not a computer unless I can use Emacs.
Yeah. Well,
sorry about that. Back to the future. So S mode is a thing.
Yes,
it's already a thing.
And you were right, Brad, and Paul.
Well,
I was right. I told you I was right. I told you.
There was no doubt that this was correct. I mean, I'm glad Joe B came out and confirmed it and everything. Yeah. But it's not like a carrier pigeon dropped off a note. I mean, we saw some pretty serious documentation. It was obviously real. So
what? So what did he say about education? He said something about education in that, right?
Yeah.
Well, because there was a big education announcement this week from Microsoft.
Yep.
Okay.
Which is our next item.
Well, let's talk about it. Okay.
Okay. So Future Source Consulting, who does stats on the mobile computing shipments in the U.S. and abroad to K through 12 and also to higher education, came out with their latest stats this week. And so there's good news, some good news for Microsoft, and there's some not so good news for Microsoft.
Which did they highlight? I can't remember.
Surprisingly, they only highlighted the good news. Actually, that's not surprising.
You really have to cherry pick from this thing to find good news.
You do.
There, but they did it.
You do. They did. Yeah. So the good news for them is Windows market share on mobile PCs and tablets is growing in the K through 12 space in the U.S. They went from 22.3% to 25.6% share from Q3 this last year to Q4 last year. So they grew. And the reason they grew is because of these new, really cheap, low-end third-party PCs that Microsoft and their partners are pushing into the education space. The $189 models and all those. Yeah. So that's why they grew. That was good news for them. It shows, hey, your push in education is working. What they didn't talk about is who has 60% market share in the U.S. K through 12. Chromebooks.
Also growing, by the way. Yeah.
Also growing. Yeah. And especially, should I keep going or do you want to interject something?
Sorry. Yep.
Okay. No, I was just going to throw all the stats out there. So the part they didn't talk about at all, which to me is a little concerning, is Windows right now dominates outside the U.S. in this K through 12 market. Right. Windows has 60% share in of every country except the U.S. in that space.
It's like the Chrome OS of the international markets.
It is. But their share is going down overseas.
Right.
So who's growing? Android is growing, and Chrome is growing overseas. So it's great news for them in the U.S. They're making a little more headway against the giant Chromebook beast. Not a lot, a little bit. But overseas, they're losing share. And that's a little bit concerning if you're a Windows
The other thing is that Microsoft never mentioned Future Source until the end of last year when they finally had some positive news. So this is the second quarter in a row which they could show some growth in the U.S. market only. So this is the second time in a row they've kind of mentioned this. But when you look at the full year 2017, Windows did grow actually, but it didn't grow as fast as Chrome OS for the year. And Chrome OS internationally is growing much faster, but that makes sense because Chrome OS internationally has a lower share, like you pointed out. So, it's weird. You know, the other thing I kind of highlighted when I wrote about this was that last May, Microsoft had their big education event where they kicked off this stuff. And there was a bunch of stuff that fell in behind this, including such things as Microsoft 365 for Education, that version of Minecraft that has the chemistry stuff in it and so forth. But at the May event, they announced a bunch of things. Their initial education push for the past year. They announced Windows 10S, and they announced Surface Laptop, which frankly didn't make any sense for the education market. But both of those items are missing in action in Microsoft's announcement about these results. They never once mentioned Windows 10S, which I find to be kind of strange in particular. And I think that's tied back. This is why I didn't want to talk about that thing earlier. Microsoft doesn't have a single example of a school or educational institution of any size that has rolled out Windows 10S. And you have to think that if they had even one, they would have pointed to it by now, let alone a major one. And the thing I just wanted to kind of reiterate about the educational PCs, because last May, they announced 5-ish of them from various companies. Lenovo, I think, was suspiciously missing in action. At BET this past January, Lenovo came on board. I think there was some other Asian PC makers that came on board as well. They now have several PC makers with a dozen-ish sub $300 education-focused laptops, which is great. None of those things ship with Windows 10S only. Schools have a choice between Windows 10S and Windows 10 Pro, I think, and then maybe for higher institutions it would be, I think there's a Windows 10 education as well. But I don't think anyone has ever chosen 10S. I literally don't think there is an educational institution that has ever picked this operating system, which is part of. That's why
Joe B tweeted about that, right? Because I think it was Mark Hackman from PC World said to him, "Why didn't you mention 10S in there?" And he's like, "Well, because it's a mode." Right?
Yeah. See, it's not. But today it isn't a mode. Today it's a choice, and it's a choice you make up front, and that's not the choice that they're making. So
I bought a mode. I thought I bought a computer, but I bought a mode.
What are you running? I'm running a mode.
I'm running a la mode.
Leo's computer is interesting because it's ARM too, and this maybe doesn't make as much sense. But if someone felt the need to be in this mode or whatever, and they were running Windows 10 Pro, like I said, you could just install the app or apps that you want, flip that switch in settings.
Yeah,
and you would have
you get the battery life, right?
You might. I mean,
So that's going to be the pain, is because I have to test the battery life for a week or two. In S mode to see if it's any better. Has anybody done that? Do we really know if S mode is better battery life?
By the way, thank you. No, we don't. And
it's just
no one's done
it's an assertion from Microsoft.
No, literally, because the real promise of Windows 10S isn't so much you use this thing and the battery life is 10 hours and you don't use it and it's 9 hours. I don't think that's really how it works. I think the point of this is performance degradation over time goes away or is lessened. Because the things that impact, in other words, if you brought up a brand new Windows 10 Pro system and you installed nothing on it, you updated it fully, and then you ran, a video streaming test or whatever, and it got X number of hours of battery life. I think if you ran that same computer with us, I could test this to be sure, but you would see no difference at all. But those things are completely fresh installs. The things that drag down Windows 10 Pro or whatever are those little programs that run in startup, the little background processes that are always checking for updates, the ill-mannered Win32 apps that are doing whatever baloney they're doing in the background. And that real-life battery life does suffer from that stuff. And it gets worse over time. Whereas Windows 10s, I mean, it's such a goofy thing to say. It's like by virtue of the fact that it doesn't do anything, it can do nothing for much longer than something that can do something. You know, it's like when Windows NT got that military certification back in the 90s, it had to be in a locked room with no connection to the outside world. And in that condition, it was perfectly safe for the military to use. It's like, well, yeah, of course. It can't be hacked. It's physically separated from everything else. So yeah, a smart person could go in and say, look, I want these apps to run. Maybe one of those apps is Photoshop, and maybe one of the things you got to have with Photoshop is some background processing that looks for updates. And what are you going to do? You have to use it or you don't. You know, and so you're going to impact your battery life. But you're using Photoshop. You're going to impact your battery life. That's probably the worst thing you could put on a laptop other than a game if you want to kill battery life. I don't know. It's just a trade-off.
Yeah.
Okay. And then security is the other supposedly benefit of S, right?
Yeah.
Has that been demonstrated?
So I have a little data point
back
for
on
that.
S.
The answer is no. But again, if you're not running Win32 apps, if there's and it's not like a technical inability to run Win32 apps. It's an artificial block in the OS. It's not perfect. And I can prove it, because I have the machine that I brought up over here just now to check on that WSL thing that we already found the answer to, which is running Windows 10s. I'm using it for the book. It's the thing I use to take screenshots for the book. I got a virus on this computer.
Oh, well, there you go.
Oh, wow.
And
how'd you do that, Paul? You should know better than that.
Listen, I don't. First of all, I don't get viruses, period, on my normal computers.
Right.
I'm not doing weird stuff on them. I'm not doing anything on this. So how did I get a virus?
How did that happen?
Your bet is your guess is as good as mine.
That's
I have
weird.
no idea. Yeah. Yep. It only runs Edge, obviously. I know.
Right.
I took pictures of it. I don't know. Windows Defender handled it for whatever that's worth.
Oh, it did handle it. Okay.
Yeah. Let me see if I can. See if I can find.
No, for a while they were. Microsoft also at one point I think advertised 10s as unhackable, which ZDNet showed was not true.
Immediately.
Also.
Immediately.
Careful there.
Never say anything's unhackable.
No, you can't say that.
Yeah.
Ask
so
Oracle.
the thing I had was this happened on February 18th. It was called Trojan HTML Fish.
Oh, you got that through the web though. That's like some.
Yeah,
but Edge shouldn't be vulnerable to. Well, maybe it is.
The point is, like, it came up with a like a threat alert. It was like threats found. Like what?
What?
So I looked. I had it do a whole scan, and then I had it.
At least they didn't get so cocky as to take out Defender and other malware protection.
Or remove it. Actually,
I know, right? So safe, you don't need Defender.
It's like Titanic. It's the unsinkable Windows S.
The threat level is severe.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So. Yeah, it's not like a Mac. I mean, it's not safe. It's
so S. What is okay? So I have two questions. I know we're back on S.
What's the point?
A, what's the point? Yeah. And B, says Patterson in the chat room, and a good point. Why wait? Why if it's going to be a mode, why isn't it a mode now with these shipping computers?
So it is already a mode.
No, I know, it's a mode.
But in other words,
why exposed?
No, when you get a PC with Windows 10 S today, what you're really getting is Windows 10 Pro in S mode. That's what you get. Yeah. That's what is on your PC.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's there.
There's no mode switch. That's the only thing, but it's there.
No, there's no switch. Well, you can to move off of
not in the
S.
way that you would want it. Yeah.
No.
So what's the point? The point is that the technologies that this thing blocks are legacy code that are unmanaged and unmanageable, and they are all of the threats that come into your computer are based on this code base.
Right.
So this is a future that Microsoft wants to get to. First by blocking it, and then I think eventually by eliminating as much of it as they can. Although, frankly, I mean, they can't really eliminate it fully. The system is built on top of Win32. But, I've argued a lot in the past that this is just it's too big of a step to take at one time. That there are middle grounds to be had while we work toward this goal. And then there are a bunch of other problems too, like just the immaturity of the store app platform, the UWP thing, just makes this change untenable for most people. There are not high-quality versions of all of the apps we all use available in UWP, and there probably never will be.
So I shouldn't feel guilty then about.
No, I wouldn't feel guilty. You're guilty.
I'll just say, like I say every time we talk about 10S, there is a group of people for whom this solution is fine. I'm an example of this person.
Well, of course, it's fine, but
that's the point. So the point is, like, there I think is a substantial group of people who this can work for, who are like me, use very few apps. You mostly browse the web, look at their email. They don't need 132 apps. They can live in Edge. I know it's not.
No, they can't. I don't think there is a big group. I think there is a group.
I do. I think there's a pretty big group.
If the browser was Chrome, it would be a way bigger group.
Yeah.
For one thing.
Just because we're used to Chrome, I think.
Because Chrome is better. It's materially better.
So I used Surface Laptop for a week in the summer last year, and I had not used Edge. Like, I had just been like, oh, I'm a Chrome user, blah. I used Edge, and you know what? It was fine.
No, but it was fine. That's good. But it just doesn't. You could ride a rickshaw to work every day, and it would be fine.
It's fine.
But it would get you there. I mean, look, nobody pays $1,500 for a Surface Laptop not to run the applications they already own or want. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Well, I would just say there should be some benefit to doing it.
Right. So the benefit that Microsoft says is there, which we just said we can't prove yet,
I think it's all theoretical.
One, you don't get bit rot, right? So that your system isn't going to degrade over time. We don't know that because it hasn't been in the market long enough.
And I guarantee that's not true.
Two, apps only can be downloaded from the store. So for people who are normals who, want to have a safer computing environment, or their company wants them to have a safer computing environment, that they are just bound to the store. That's another touted benefit. Battery life is another touted benefit. All these things are they are theoretical, but that's what they're saying is the reason people would use it, right?
Being forced to do less will always be safer. Yes. I mean, don't travel to Europe. You might get mugged. Stay home.
Actually, maybe I answered my own question because in the last month or so, I've been saying a new security rule, which I'd not really heard expressed this way before, which is don't install extra programs. Install as little as possible because everything you install opens a door. It potentially opens a door to exploits, unreliability, waste space, possibly waste CPU. And if you're not going to use it, you're wasting your time. So and I think this is a big security rule. Don't install anything you're not going to use. Just install as few programs as possible. So in that respect, Windows S enforces that a little bit. I mean, you can still install every Windows Store app there is, but
it doesn't have the apps you want. That's the problem. There's too much.
It depends what the apps are you want.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem. Yeah, you'll know if that's true or not, and it's not true for me. Right. It's true for Mary Jo, so that's fine.
There is no one on earth that is a normal human being. No, I'm not even Mary Jo. I mean, Mary Jo is in the tech industry. She follows Microsoft. She knows they make this browser called Edge. She feels obligated to test it. She says it's fine. I'm sure it is fine. Normal people don't want that. That's not.
I think normal people don't know the difference between Edge and Chrome.
They didn't know the difference in Internet Explorer.
I tell you, the first time they run Edge, they'll know the difference when they run it, and they'll say, "What is this stupid thing?"
Is Edge that bad? Paul? I don't think Edge is that bad.
Edge is literally that bad.
Is it?
Yes.
No, it's not.
And this is yes, it is.
Is it really?
I evaluate this thing all the time. Yes.
No. So for people like Paul who are not normal, in any sense of the word normal, I think it's not okay. For me and the people who, like you just said, people who don't know IE from Edge, who don't know, like my mom. My mom is like, I say, click on Internet Explorer. What is that? It's the browser. I don't know what that is. Okay. Those are the people who this will be fine for.
Right. Edge might not even be better than Internet Explorer, by the way. I recently had to bring up Windows 7 and Windows 8.1 for purposes of the book. And in looking at these systems and having to use Internet Explorer because that's the browser that's in those things, I was thinking to myself, actually, this thing in many ways it just feels less like Edge just feels so top heavy. It's just like this. I don't know.
And I also am in some ways a very bad judge of this because I don't have a lot of visual cues in my life, and I just look at words. So like after 2 days, I was like, I don't even know what browser I'm using. I'm just looking at the words. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
Listen, Leo touched on this, and I agree with this completely. This notion of just install the things you need. We the two of us are already running what Microsoft would call like a streamlined computing environment. I don't put a bunch of crap on there. If I could install one less thing and use Microsoft Edge, I would. I have actively been trying to do this. I really have, and I've done it over multiple versions of Windows 10. It's an ongoing thing. I never stop looking at it. It never stops falling short for me. Yes, I'm whatever kind of user I am. There's a this is just a complete side story in a way, but this is actually kind of cool. And if you use iOS on an iPhone or an iPad or whatever, there's a feature in the OS. Leo might know the name of it, but you flip a switch, and what it will do is it will offload apps that you don't use. Yeah, they stay in your home screen. Yep. They have a little cloud icon thing next to them, and it keeps the data there. So if you have if you signed in or did whatever. And it's there to save storage space. That's the point of it. But for me, what it has shown me is I put stuff on my front screen, which is the apps I use the most, and three of them were offloaded. Yep. And this is a really valuable thing.
Because you never use them.
Yeah.
So, we make these assumptions about things. Like on my phone, I use Google Calendar a lot, especially when I'm traveling for work. I put it on the home screen of my iPad. I never use it on my iPad. I use my iPad to read things, to watch movies, whatever.
That's right.
This kind of being confronted by that is very valuable. And I would like to see something like that for Windows. It could like gray out the icon or something. It's like you've pinned 8 things to your taskbar. You only use 3 of them. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be it's kind of an interesting
S
mode in the future.
That could be S mode.
That's something, I agree with you, Paul. That's exactly right. And by the way, I don't think that feature has a name, but it's interesting that both Android and iOS now are starting to implement that.
Yeah, I do. I use it on Android. Yeah.
Oh,
Android, every once in a while, it just says to you, like, do you want to get rid of the things you don't use?
Yeah.
I get things for that, like for storage, like for photos.
No, but it's also in the settings for apps, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I like that. I think that's a neat.
Me too.
That's a neat idea. That'd be a nice thing on Windows. I mean, Windows is kind of a legacy system. It's probably more inclined to cruft, or bitrot or whatever.
Yeah. Although it's funny because mobile, both iOS and Android, I don't know, maybe I'm unusual, but as soon as I set up a phone, I install 150 apps.
Yeah, I do install.
Right. Well, there's just a set of it's easy to do because the way the setup works, it will automatically do that. And so I've collected a lot of apps. Periodically, I'll review them and get rid of stuff, but I'm unusual because I test a lot more apps. Probably,
I test a lot of apps. That's how things end up on all of my devices.
But all of us, I think it's aspirational. We aspire to use more apps. We install a bunch of stuff we think we're going to use, and we never use it. I think that's really normal on all operating systems. I really do.
I just think there's a fatigue that sets in with this stuff, and that eventually, I think all of us collectively just want less,
But I'm sure Microsoft's telemetry tells them that people have apps on their system they've never opened.
Yeah, Microsoft's telemetry tells them all kinds of things, and that's part of what led to Windows 10s. And I actually have a really big problem with that kind of thing. I think there's a major disconnect between what data shows, like telemetry data in particular, and what people are actually doing or wanting, I got into an argument on Twitter the other day with someone from Microsoft about the Cortana screeching at you in setup. And because if you go and find the recording of what she says and the way she says it, the design here is that you're blind or you can't see very well, and you're going to audio guide your way through Windows setup because this is such a huge need for such a huge number of people. It comes on automatically. It's super loud because Windows is always set to a very high volume when it initially comes up, and you can't do anything until she's done talking. You can mute her if you know to press the button that doesn't look like a speaker for some reason, but you can't get past it. You have to wait for her to talk. And that speech she gives is insulting. if you were a blind person or a person hard of sight and wanted to do this for some reason, I think you would find this to be annoying. Like, why do we have to treat them like an idiot? And they were insistent that the people who use this feature love it. They absolutely love it. And that's the kind of disconnect that I'm talking about. It's not technically telemetry data. I'm sure they talk to actual people. But, in my case, I mean, I have a son who was deaf, not blind, but I can tell you that as a parent of a child like that, the goal is for them to have a normal experience, not for them to be treated differently. And when Cortana comes up with their stupid little Wi-Fi here, a little bit, that's not treating someone normally. That's treating someone like an idiot.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't have that perspective, but that makes a lot of sense.
It makes me crazy.
Yeah, you know it better than others. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just telemetry data is flawed. It just it's not the story. It's not the full story.
Yeah.
You know, it's better than not having any data. Data is important. There's no doubt about it. But the way that you use the data is important. And I think we've arrived at this endpoint in Windows today where like a lot of this stuff is driven by like, telemetry data, like feedback data, like people in the Windows Insider program driving their little agendas and upvoting things. And now we have like 13 different ways to do restore for some reason.
Yeah.
You don't have a singular vision, which by the way would never be driven by data. I don't know. I don't know how to frame this discussion in a way that makes any sense, I guess. But I feel like there's a I don't know, an underlying problem in Windows today. And you can see it in these things.
I think the underlying problem is how do you design something for 1 billion people?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, because what you might find super useful, I'll be like, yeah, who cares, right? Like,
well, we see it right here, for crying out loud. You're debating whether S makes any sense.
Right.
Right. I like, but look, the funny thing is because this gets lost in all this. If you go back to like the education things, we complained about whatever. I actually think Microsoft has done everything they can do to address this market and the problems that they have with Chrome. They've done a great job. That maybe doesn't get voiced enough. I feel that Windows 10S as a vision is important, that Microsoft does need to get Windows to that point. Maybe that doesn't get voiced enough. The problem is that in the interim, you have to kind of, you have to be here now. You have to be present in what's going on today. And, Windows 10S, I just think is too limiting. We can talk about the little things that are different between it and Windows RT. Windows RT, I was joking, was kind of like a one-way dead-end road or whatever, because once you went down that path, you were stuck. There was no way out of it, and that's true. But fundamentally, we're still talking about the same thing. It's something that looks exactly like Windows that doesn't do everything that Windows does. And it's just, we're too conditioned over decades of using Windows to expect this thing to do everything we want it to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess some people are.
Something simpler, I'd buy an iPad. No, I mean, I don't think some people. I
think I kind of represent the normal in this conversation.
You're certainly more normal than Paul and I.
I'm more normal than you guys, but there are some people. I know it's hard for people who are more professional and advanced users to think about this, but there are some people like all we do is browse and like look at email and use the most rudimentary stuff. And I don't think that's a small group. I don't.
Well, okay. You're making a good point, because actually the fundamental underlying point behind Windows 10S, which was originally called Windows 10 Cloud, was that they had telemetry data that showed that 50% or more of all of the stuff that people did in Windows happened on the web, for one thing. And that if you look at the rest of it, the vast majority of it could be accommodated by what's built into Windows plus Microsoft Office. And that's normal people right there. This is absolutely true. But the problem is Edge, for one thing. And the problem is the store, because once you go past that, and I've talked about this a lot, how there'll always be that one thing. You have a printer that has a driver that you can't get. You have a mouse, a Microsoft mouse, where you can't install the driver, by the way. You have one application that you need, because every normal, like we're all special little snowflakes, right? I mean, you might want to write scripts for a movie that you're doing. You might want to start writing JavaScript programs. You might want to, whatever it might be, it doesn't matter. Something special I don't know anything about. You like to do cross-stitching or whatever, and there's an app for that. Well, guess what? That app doesn't work on Windows 10S, and that's the problem. Like,
right. You don't know ahead of time. We've had this conversation.
The system is a good idea.
We have.
Yeah. They just needs to. Why is it so hard lined? Like just yes, 10S, but let me run Chrome. I could run 10S right now if I could just run Chrome.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to say it one more time. You get why they want you let you run Chrome, right? Do you know,
yeah, they're
right?
covered bastards with bastard filling.
They know the key to everything is the browser and an operating system, and so they don't even care if you can run Chrome. Like that's why.
If Edge matched up, I would use it. I would bite myself in the face and I would use Edge. But you know what? The fact that Microsoft has a corporate policy to prevent me from running the thing that I want makes me want to use this thing even less. I'm not here to push their aims. That's not why I use Windows. Go Microsoft.
Yeah.
That's not. No, I'm sorry, and that's not a mass market of people, by the way, either.
No,
I agree with you that most people probably don't know the difference between Edge and Internet Explorer or whatever. For sure. I mean, I had a guy on Twitter tell me today that his users didn't know the difference between a Mac and a PC. So
yeah, I think that's not unusual.
I don't think it's unusual either. I know.
Yeah. No, I'm sure you're right. I'm absolutely sure you're right.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a little timey tune out, and we'll be back with more a la mode S. A la S mode.
No more S mode.
No more S mode. Actually, what we really want to talk about, and we've been waiting for you, is to get over this S mode thing, is the new Windows builds, of which you said 3 this week. Holy cow!
I think in the past week it's been 3. I think it's been 3 since we did this last show, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
You know what's happened since we did this last show? WordPress, our sponsor, WordPress.com, WordPress platform, content management platform, exceeded 30% of all websites everywhere. 30%. The next biggest content management system is under 10%. Really, WordPress is it. I mean, I got to say, and I know Paul runs Thurrott.com on WordPress. Steve Gibson runs his private site, his blog on WordPress. I run my blog, leolaporte.com, on WordPress, because WordPress.com makes it easy. So if you're ready for a website, whether it's a personal blog or your business, you got to check it out. WordPress.com gives you the freedom and flexibility to share your voice, your work, your way. Make your site your own. And you don't need to be a guru or an expert. I think it's really interesting that Steve Gibson, for grc.com, he runs his own servers and he does all the, he contracts with Level 3 for the bandwidth, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to just doing his blog, his posts, he went to WordPress.com because he didn't want to do all that heavy lifting. So you don't have to. You don't have to know it. He knows it. You don't even have to know it. You just go to WordPress.com. They give you all the tools they need to get your site up and running, like in minutes, right now. You could do it right now. It's actually a great feeling to have your own site. And that now you own that site. You have a place on the web that no one can take away from you. That's so important. Not just as an individual, but for a business. If as a business you rely on your Facebook page or your Twitter account to publicize your business, you should know you don't own that. They can turn you off at any time. They can decide, hey, he's a Russian bot. Boom, you're gone. And there's no recourse. With WordPress.com, you own your site. And man, the great templates to choose from, all the plugins, it's more affordable. I've been running a WordPress site for 15 years. But when I first did it, I had my own server and I put WordPress on. And this is ridiculous. Not only did it cost me more, I was responsible for keeping it up to date, and I never ended up blogging because I was so busy messing with a server. Not WordPress.com. You're in a community. They support it. They host it very affordably. They have e-commerce. I wouldn't even have contemplated putting e-commerce on my old site. E-commerce options ranging from a simple and effective buy button. You can just have a big buy button next to one thing to a complete online store. Plans start at just $4 a month. Of course, anytime you need help, the WordPress help team they're so nice, so professional, so smart. They blew me away. And they're there 24/7 Monday through Friday and on weekends too. So you can get a hold of them anytime. And when you're ready to expand your business's online reach, WordPress makes it easy with built-in SEO, built-in social sharing. That means your customers can promote your business on their Twitter timeline or their Facebook page. So they're helping you, and you're still there. You should still have a Facebook page and a Twitter timeline, but it should all link back to your home on the web, WordPress.com. Nearly 30%, it is now 30. It crossed over. 30% of all websites run on WordPress. And right now you can get started with any new plan purchase and 15% off at WordPress.com/Windows. Create your new site. Even if it's just a student, there should be a place that should be the #1 search result on Google for you, should be your site. Go to WordPress.com/Windows and make it happen. Just put stuff up there, the stuff that reflects you well. Put that there. That's you. That becomes your place on the internet. WordPress.com/Windows. That's the first place you go. Right now, you'll get 15% off your brand new website, and it's fun. WordPress.com/Windows. We thank them so much for making Windows Weekly a possibility every week. All right. How many? 3? Paul, did you install them all?
No, I did not.
What? What kind of eager beaver are you?
I'm still working on the last version because I'm updating the book.
Oh,
now I'm always behind.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, do we have anything to say about these, or we just want to move on?
Well, we should mention a few things quickly. Actually, some of them are called out ahead.
Take your time. Get plenty of time. No hurry.
Actually, it's the last item in there. So the skip ahead thing, I think, is maybe the most interesting bit, right?
Right. So that just came out right before the show started. New skip ahead build for Redstone 5, not 4.
So
5.
This is the second RS5 build, I think.
And
this one actually has some stuff in it, right? Isn't this the mixed reality thing is in there and the sets?
The sets. Yep.
Feature. Yeah.
Right. So before this, only some people were testing sets among Windows 10 insiders. And now if you're in the skip ahead build, everybody who's in that build is now going to get to test sets. Right.
Right.
And I think it's new that some of these first party apps are in there, isn't it? Microsoft's starting to enable sets to work with things like Mail, Calendar, OneNote, and even File Explorer, right?
Yeah, some select Win32 apps, but they're only the ones that are built into the OS right now.
So Notepad, Notepad. And
Tab Notepad.
Tab. Did you see Jen from Microsoft posted a thing with Tab Notepad? I'm like, okay, so they didn't wreck Notepad. They're just letting me run multiple notepads in like a sets construction. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can open multiple versions of Notepad now, but this looks better.
You're right. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the idea of tabbed windows. I've been using that Groupy app from Stardock.
From Stardock, yep.
I don't know. I mean, I tab windows to me are like a multiple document kind of thing. And I do multiple documents in my text editor, actually, which is a Markdown editor. Obviously, I do it in a web browser. I think that's about it, right? I don't really typically have multiple things open. And, I'm trying to decide if it makes sense. If you had a single window with Notepad, Photoshop or something, File Explorer, all docked together or grouped together. Yeah. What is the utility of that, right?
Well, it's like, what's that feature in Windows 10 now that you said nobody really uses? Virtual desktops or something, right? So the idea, idea is if you do multiple things on your PC and you kind of think of them as a group, which is kind of how I think when I use my PC, you'd have things that you use together in one set of tabs.
Yeah, like a project or something.
Right.
So, I mean, in some ways, this is kind of strange, but this might actually make more sense in a full screen situation, right? Where everything's full screen. So you could use Alt-Tab to switch between these different projects, which would be a window with tabs with multiple applications inside. And then you could probably, I don't know what the keyboard navigation, but in a browser, it's Control-Tab to switch between those windows, those apps, right? Within each project, a group, or whatever we're calling that thing. I mean, sure. It requires a little bit of a context shift, though. It's not the way we're used to working, right?
No, but I like if you use your PC, say for work and home, right? And you're doing a bunch of work things and you have those grouped together. And then you say for home, you're like researching a vacation or something. Instead of having all your tabs in one browser like I do right now, like I'm looking at my Chrome right now and I have like 30 tabs open. It would be nicer to have groups. Groups of tabs.
Yeah, right. And Microsoft, I mean, I just trashed Edge, but they've done some work, especially for students, but for anybody to organize tabs into groups that you can save and collect and then get back to later. And that's actually kind of a nifty feature.
It is. Yeah.
You know, the only time I ever use something like that personally is when my computer crashes and I have to go back and go into history in Chrome and say, bring back this thing I was doing, you know, and it brings back whatever it is, 21 tabs or something. Yeah. They're certainly trying. I like to see this kind of stuff. I mean, I will say for all of the nonsense in Windows 10 and that Cortana thing I pointed out earlier is certainly in that group. You know, the 3D stuff and even VR, Windows virtual reality, not because it's bad, but because it just impacts such a small group of people. You do something like this. And I like this kind of thing. This kind of speaks to the fundamental productivity nature of Windows. And I think this kind of addition is nice.
Me too. I like it.
So does Ruff.
So many of the features. Dog. I know.
I think the dog sees someone shoveling their driveway and would like to protect us from that horrible person.
No, come over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many features in Windows 10 that I'm kind of like, would I ever use that? No, but this is one of the ones I'm like, yep, I would use it.
Yeah, I've been trying to use it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still not. I don't know. I'm still not quite there. I feel like
you said, you have to rethink your workflow to do it, right?
Yeah,
because it's not the way we've always done it.
Forgive me if this is a complete sidetrack, and maybe even you might have a solution to this. But one of the things I really like about Windows is that picture like a browser is a great example. Chrome or Edge or whatever can have multiple tabs in a single window. You could have multiple windows, each of which has multiple tabs. And then in Windows, we have very simple keyboard shortcuts to switch between those things. So in Windows, if I have two Chrome windows open and I do Alt-Tab, those two windows come up in the list of available applications. If you're on a Mac and you open two Chrome windows and you do Command Tab, whatever it is on the Mac keyboard, only one of them comes up. And to navigate between the two Chrome windows, you have to go to the window menu.
Huh. Yes, you're right. Yeah.
And people often ask me, because I'll always say like I'm more productive or efficient on Windows. And they say it's because you're used to Windows. And I say, no, it's because I try the Mac and then things aren't there. You know, for example, also on Windows, we have Snap, right? So Windows key plus, the arrow keys, you can snap Windows to the side. You can do like a side-by-side kind of thing. I actually installed, I might have even paid for an application that does that for the Mac because they don't have that kind of window management capability on the Mac. I just find that stuff to be kind of efficient. So this thing, what you're describing is very useful, obviously, but it almost like I'm so used to, I wonder if I could make it work for me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
it's a new way
have
of
to
working.
look up what I don't know what the keyboard shortcuts are for navigating between those things.
I
mean, I'll find out. I'll look at it, but it's interesting.
Yeah. So something else worth pointing out, even though you called it privacy theater, is in the fast-ring Windows 10 build that came out this week. I think it was this week, 17115. Microsoft's adding a couple new additional privacy settings to Windows 10 that are going to be part of Redstone 4. One is around inking and typing recognition, and the other is around recognizing your device.
So, by the way, just because I had to look at that a couple of times to understand it, those things won't normally come up.
You have to bring them up?
Yeah, if you're familiar with how the Windows 10 setup works today, there's a privacy screen that has two columns with multiple items. And you can kind of switch them on or off, if you don't want to send telemetry data back to Microsoft about these particular things. Those screens you're describing will occur. It's not clear to me exactly how you bring them up, but I I think you can select the items and then that screen will come up. So one of the items is for pen and ink. One of the items is for location services, probably. I don't remember the exact list, but it's not like they added 8 new screens to Windows Setup.
Yeah.
I mean, they did, but they're not everyone will see them. If you just go, most people will look at that screen and say, yeah, that's fine, and hit next. And when they do that, I don't think you'll see those additional screens. If that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
But you can go into each item and say, well, what do I want to do here? I think that's how it works. I think.
Okay. Yeah. So, like I mean, I kind of agree with you to some extent about theater part of this because, the thing that people most request is they want to send no telemetry data, not that they want to change how they send telemetry data to Microsoft. But this doesn't shut off telemetry data. It just is. It's adding more granular controls to the privacy settings. So they've encountered a lot of pushback on how they're collecting telemetry data. So they're continuing to try to tweak this. That's why they're doing this.
It probably is more granular overall than it used to be.
Yeah.
Most privacy settings were available for you to review and change previously after the fact. And this gives you the chance to do it as part of initial setup.
Yeah. I'm sure no one ever went back, or almost no one ever went back and changed them. Like they do, click through, like, oh yeah, everything's good. Clicks, express setup.
I don't know why I keep doing this every week, but as part of my weekly, this is what I hate about Windows because I'm writing about it for the book thing. One of the big features of the book is the privacy bit, and it is kind of astonishing how all over the place those privacy settings are in settings. There is not there is actually a privacy thing, but you actually have to visit several different areas of settings and really just dive through the menus and look at stuff and check boxes and things. If you want to find every single little privacy setting in Windows, you have a lot of places to visit.
It's a lot.
They're really, it's complicated. I think most people
install, do they walk you through, if you don't choose, if you choose to customize, they walk you through it. Do they walk you through all those settings?
Not exactly. The screens she's describing aren't really that more nuanced than on-off. I mean, it's
true.
But that's, I can understand why you don't want to make it too complicated too.
No, but you're just pulling them out and making it more obvious to people. Like this is what you're signing on for, right?
Right. Microsoft fixing a problem of its own making is something I have a hard time applauding, but I think it's fair to say that this kind of transparency is good, and just presenting this to the user and saying, look, this is what we're doing, and the Russian backdoor thing, obviously. But as far as like the things you can turn on and off, here they are.
He's joking about the Russian backdoor, just in case.
Am I?
Sure he is. Sure he is. But wait, we didn't tell Leo the biggest feature of the week that he's going to be the most excited about.
Oh, what's that?
And this isn't even an insider build thing. This is, you can go to the store now and get Debian Linux or Kali Linux.
I saw that. I don't understand what that means, though. I mean, you're not really getting Linux.
You're getting Linux.
Actually,
so there's a Windows subsystem.
Okay, so let me tell you what it would mean in my world to get Linux. That you would install this from the store, and then when you rebooted your machine, you'd be running Linux.
No.
No, it's not that.
Okay, next best thing. You'd get this from the store, and you would have a VM that would be running Linux in a window. Full Linux. No.
No, you don't get that.
Are you getting the Linux kernel? No. So that's the only thing that actually makes Linux Linux is the Linux kernel. So I don't understand what you're getting.
You're getting the Windows Subsystem for Linux, which
runs on the Windows kernel, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not Linux.
I didn't pay too much. I'd never heard of Kali Linux before.
It's a security Linux. It's a good Linux. It's used by pen testers. It's a tool.
Yeah, but I think it was those guys. If you look at their blog post, they actually explain how you can. Oh, good! I got another weather alert. You're gonna die. I think they show you how to install like a graphical user interface on top of it as well. Ooh, Ooh, that's sweet. This has gotten better.
You can
now
put a GUI. You could put a GUI on.
Let's go look it up. I paid so little
that
attention
I'm not
to
sure
this.
about.
Because
about
that would be a big change, because you couldn't use
yeah,
you could with a hack or two, but in theory WSL didn't support GUIs. It was all command.
That's right. That's right. So let's see. They say that's just the installing bit. This is just command line. I could have sworn it. Oh no, that's not it. Covering installing XFCE4.
Yeah.
Isn't that the interface?
Yeah, that's a desktop manager.
Yeah, so they let you do that.
Environment, XFCE. Huh. That's the only one, though.
I guess. I don't see any.
Well, that's a good one. It's lightweight. It's, it's fine. It gets the job done. It's very strange to me. I don't think that the groups that do this, which is now Ubuntu and Kali, should be allowing them to call it Linux. It's not Linux if it doesn't have the Linux kernel. It's some GNU utilities on top of the Windows kernel.
So, oh man,
it's more like wine. I mean, it'd be like calling wine Windows. Yeah, we got Windows now on Linux. It's called wine.
I think Microsoft is working with these the creators of the distributions. It's not like they're just taking them, right?
No. Yeah. No, I understand that.
Yeah.
So they can
I don't know
use
why you
their
got to hate
branding.
on Linux.
They could call it Ubuntu and they could call it Kali, but they can't call it Linux.
Okay. So how do they say this? I'm sure there's some wiggle room in the wording. They do call it Kali Linux in quotes Windows application.
People, Gardner in the chat room saying, "Well, you can run Linux binaries as Linux." That's not right. Shall we? Do I have to get Richard Stallman in here to spank you?
Oh, please!
No, we do
so
not.
Linux. Here's what Linux is. Linux is a kernel created by Linus Torvalds. It's a kernel, just like Windows has a kernel, right? It's a kernel created by Linus Torvalds, and it has been distributed by many people, including Kali and Ubuntu, with additional features, an installer, and then generally GNU, but sometimes other programs on top of it.
Yeah.
What makes it Linux is the Linux kernel. You put the herd kernel on it, which is another open source kernel. It's not Linux anymore. You put the Windows kernel, it's not Linux anymore. I'm sorry to be pedantic about this.
No, so I see the wording they're using. They're calling it Linux environment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because they can run... But see, even the
it's
word
on
Linux,
top of the Windows
Richard,
subsystem.
I'm now kind of supporting Richard Stallman because for decades he's been a big pain in the butt saying it shouldn't be called Linux, it should be called GNU Linux.
Do not agree with the crazy person on the street.
He's not crazy.
No.
He says it should be called GNU Linux. And I thought, well, that's really splitting hairs. But what he probably anticipated is something like this, where it would be GNU, and GNU would get 0 credit, and Linux would get all the credit.
Right.
Because it's really the GNU utilities.
I mean, unfortunately for him, it kind of has gone in that direction.
Yeah. Not that he has any love for Linux. In fact, it's quite the opposite. He wants GNU to get credit for it. GNU has, for a long time, has been developing its own kernel called Herd. But which exists, but it's not widely used. So, I mean, BSD, FreeBSD can run Linux binaries. Doesn't make it Linux.
So I don't know if we're ever going to see a Windows subsystem for Herd, but I think obviously the point of this is to bring the command line utilities that developers and IT administrators expect to Windows, and not force them to have to switch between machines or run, not VMs, but remote sessions or whatever.
Anyway, it's I guess it's splitting hairs, except that it gets me excited because I get this notion that I'll be running Linux, and I'm not. I'm able to run some, not all, Linux binaries, but
I was going to ask, have you tried the Windows subsystem for Linux, and do you see any utility for you in using it? You personally, Leo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an emulator.
I was just curious.
It's an emulator. So I'd rather run Linux, to be honest with you. If I'm going to run Linux, I'm going to run Linux. It's really kind of a weird bastardization. It's for, I guess if somebody says, oh, I really want to be able to run HTOP, a Linux utility. And by the way, when I call it a Linux utility, I am also confusing what Linux really is and this notion of a distribution. But it's the common
I wasn't going to call you on it, but continue.
No, it's the common nomenclature. But let's say I want to use a GNU utility. The fact that I can run a compiled GNU utility on it is great.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it Linux. And mostly that's because it doesn't do everything, right? And, and it does some unpredictable things. If you said, hey, great, I'm just going to download Emacs and it'll be just like Emacs, it does some unpredictable things. So it's an emulator. It's like wine. It's very much like wine. So
you are about to do exactly the same thing, except on ARM, and you're going to run this thing, and it isn't quite Windows 10.
Well, it is.
It is, but it's
not an emulation, is it?
Well, it is for x86 apps. In fact, it literally is an emulator.
Right. But it's got an ARM kernel. It's got a Windows kernel and Win32.
Yeah, it's Windows for sure.
Yeah.
I guess the point is, I mean, for the people who need this stuff, the distinction might not matter. Although I agree with you, if it's not consistent, that's going to be a huge problem. You know,
that's the biggest problem. If people have some expectation.
Yeah. I mean, look,
like I did. Oh, good. I can get, but that's why they shouldn't say, "Oh, this is Kali Linux on Windows." It isn't really. It's some Kali utilities on Windows. But if you want Kali Linux and you want to behave as expected, you'd put Linux on your PC, make a dual boot PC, which is perfectly easy to do. I wonder how many Kali pen testers, serious Kali pen testers, would use this over Kali.
Right.
Maybe they would. I mean, you can run it if you can run Nmap and you can run Wireshark, and I mean, that's all you. Maybe that's all you care about.
I know, right? If it depends how you're using Linux, right?
Well, but you're running it then through. I'm pretty sure you're running it then through the Windows. They don't call it WinSock anymore, but the Windows stack, the TCP stack, right? Not the Linux TCP stack. So that might be a little different.
It's been too long since we had Rich Turner on the show, Mr. WSL.
I respect, and Rich explained this to me.
Can you please remind us why we like this thing?
This is how what I'm saying is from what I understood Rich to say when he was on, which is essentially they're emulating calls. They're emulating the responses, but it's not perfect yet, and it won't be, I don't think. And it's a moving target anyway, isn't it? After all, I mean, Linux is updated very, very frequently.
Right, but it's the Linux makers who are providing their environments, right?
Yeah, so Linux, the Linux kernel is run by Linus and Alan Cox and a bunch of people. That's one thing that is independent of Ubuntu or Kali or Debian or anything else. That's its own thing. That's Linux. Everything else is what the Linux makers put on top of it, and that's why this word Linux is the confusion.
Yeah.
I think right now it's just used as a brand.
Actually, I would like to. Here's what you ask Linus Torvalds, because he retained the trademark to Linux, and in theory, you can't call it Linux if it's not Linux. So he must. I wonder. I mean, he must have approved this, right?
Hopefully.
I bet if you were to go and no. I think the way they describe this is not that it's Linux.
Yeah.
I think it's described. They probably describe it carefully.
Yeah. Remember that Microsoft was always the enemy in this world because they said, we wrote Linux and we have the patent to Linux and you have to pay us.
I think the big issue was when Steve Ballmer said that Linux was cancer.
That's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a little
They've come a long way since then.
Yeah, things have changed slightly.
Things have changed a little bit. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. You got me.
A skin blemish, not really cancer.
I would like to see you try it, Leo, one of these distros, and tell us what you think is useful, not useful.
Well, I have. I of course installed WSL right away.
Yeah. I'm curious, because I know some IT admins find it very useful to have WSL in the distros.
Tim, the guy who does our website, loves it. In fact, he said that this edition has enabled him to stay on Windows.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I have no idea how he uses it. The things he does don't make any sense to me. He does this. He's his own little technical sphere there. But yeah, he thinks it's great.
Yeah. I'm looking at, there is some dispute in the community as well as whether you're, you have to get a sub-license from LMI, which is Linus's trademark organization, and whether they've gotten that sub-license or not. Doesn't Microsoft just call it WSL? And
they do.
Yeah. They don't say what L stands for?
No, it's Windows Subsystem for Linux.
They do.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Here we go. Here's a Quora question.
A piece of snow just went by me.
Really? Wow.
I don't know if you saw it on this screen. It was like a little.
It's gotten more confusing. The only reason I bring this up is because this most recent announcement is what when you say bash on Windows, that's fine. That doesn't and in bash on Windows requires bash, which is the command line, requires WSL, which is two little Pico drivers that emulate the Linux calls, syscalls, so that it can run. Then there's no confusion. Oh, fine, I'm running bash on Windows, basically, on using the WSL. But as soon as you say I'm running Kali Linux or Ubuntu Linux on Windows, that's confusing to me.
We need Rich to come back.
Well, Rich would have one point of view. I'd love to get Rich on and Linus on, is what I'd like. The
distinction here is kind of lost. I mean, I don't really.
Well, it's important only if you want to, if you have, when you say Linux, you have certain expectations about what you're using. Anyway, you're right. It's lost. I'm sorry. Well, let's just
no. I just don't. I don't have a. I don't have a response. I just don't even. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
I'm sorry.
Windows 10 is now an AI platform for developers. Finally. Thank God.
Man.
Can I use Lisp or Prolog? Can I?
Did we say AI?
No, you can't actually.
Nice. Right. So today was Windows Developer Day. There was a webcast
happy
right
Windows
before.
Developer Day.
Happy Windows Developer Day.
Microsoft's developer show.
Right. So we're starting to hear some early info about AI and Windows. So, Microsoft's been talking about AI in a lot of places. They've talked about it in Office and Bing and a lot of other applications and services, obviously in the cloud. But they hadn't really talked about AI being part of Windows until today. This was the first time that they called Windows an AI platform. So what they meant by this, which was very confusing to us before we saw the webcast and still a little confusing after we saw the webcast, is they've got this new, I don't know what I would even call it. Platform's not a great word. It's an API plus some underlying
developer
technology.
SDK probably is the way to think of it.
Yeah, like a runtime engine and an inference engine, all these pieces that are going to be part of Redstone 4. And they're meant for developers who want to use machine learning models in developing and running their apps on Windows. So, they announced this today. They've got like an architectural diagram and documentation, and I guess the bits are in developers' hands now as part of the latest SDK. And they're trying to make the play that by incorporating all of this into Windows 10, developers will be able to run machine learning and other AI applications on their PCs and use the processing power of their PCs instead of having to go up to the cloud, hit the cloud, and come back down to the PC. So performance savings, speed savings, all those kinds of things you get by running things, quote, on the edge. Paul's favorite new Microsoft term.
I don't like this term. I understand what they mean.
Yep.
Kevin Gallo suggested that this term came straight from the mind of Satya Nadella, that's why they use this. I take it to be nothing more than, intelligent cloud, intelligent edge is the new version of devices and services or of mobile first, cloud first, that
it is.
But the interesting thing about that, aside from the term itself, which I think is terrible, the notion of this is very real. And it's only become obvious to me fairly lately why this is important. So if you go back to like Apple WWDC, or actually it might have been the iPhone announcement last fall, they were talking about on-device AI, machine learning, whatever. Yep. And I probably at the time, because I'm kind of a dick about this stuff, probably made fun of them because, they don't have the cloud infrastructure, that Microsoft or Google does to do AI where it belongs in the cloud. But actually, Google and Microsoft have both talked about the need to do this work on the device as well. That, you do need that part up in the cloud, of course, but the more of that work you can do on the device itself, the better performance you're going to get, the better the results are going to be, and so forth. So I still feel like Apple's missing out on half of it, but and probably always will be compared to the big guys. But a big part of that push is special hardware as well. Yeah. That can process this stuff more efficiently, and that could be literally unique hardware. It could be unique components of existing hardware, like processors, like Apple does with its A-series processors. It could just be using graphics processors to do this stuff. For some reason, it's kind of interesting when you talk about AI that existing graphics chipsets are actually pretty efficient at doing this kind of stuff. And so part of what they were talking about today was like, look, you've got some kind of a device that's running Windows. It could be an IoT device. It could be a Windows PC. It could be a Surface Hub, whatever. We'll take advantage of what you got. If all it is a processor, we'll use the processor. But if you have a GPU, we will take advantage of that. And if you have a special little AI processor like the Intel piece that he brought out that could be added to anything, we will take advantage of that. And, that's the type of thing Microsoft's always been really good at doing.
So now you're going to start hearing us talk more, probably going forward, about Windows as an AI platform, not just Azure and Bing and Office. Yeah,
also, Xbox One is an AI platform, like the AI in the enemies in the multiplayer game. That kind of AI?
Yeah, that kind of AI. No.
Okay, good. That sounds like fun.
No, the other thing they talked about at Developer Day that I saw a lot of people getting excited about was this MSIX packaging platform, which I'm not a developer, so I may make some mistakes in describing this, but it sounds like the replacement for AppX and also the desktop bridge at some point. It's gonna enable developers to package their applications in a way that they'll be available from the store, but also for side loading as well. Right. And there's documentation about this on GitHub because Microsoft open sourced MSIX packaging SDK today. So you can check it out there. But I saw a lot of people going, wow, this is exciting. This is the future of how apps will be packaged and used in the store. Any mention of PWAs today on Developer Day?
No. No, that's disappointing.
I know. Well, I was like, okay, they're going to talk about this. No.
Yeah, I figured there would be something. But then, they look, I mean, we mentioned earlier the AI thing, and that you can't talk about anything Microsoft without mentioning AI these days. Windows Mixed Reality, Alex Kipman came out talking about AI, that you got to have that bullet point. So I think it made sense for them to focus on this notion that AI is core to Windows. And that it's fair to say that, for all the AI that's happening on these little devices and everything, the most powerful device that people use for this potentially is a Windows PC. So there's some exciting stuff that could happen there. So that kind of makes sense. Yeah, but I was a little surprised there wasn't anything.
Maybe they're saving it for build.
There was a line in one of their posts that because some of the stuff that they did applies to older development paradigms, right? They're bringing some of the stuff to Win32, to Windows Forms, to WPF. Yeah. It was kind of this crazy melange of Microsoft technologies, past and present. But they basically said, look, if you're making a new app today, our story is still UWP. And I was thinking, not for long. It was really weird. That it almost seemed expressly designed, the sentence, to cast no doubt that we are fully behind UWP. And I just don't know. They did some cool demos, but they do UWP demos and they just look goofy because it's giant buttons and,
that's disappointing. I hope it's going to look more native than that. It will look native. There's no reason.
Yeah, it will look as native as you want it to look. Yeah. Anyway, interesting day on the developer front for sure.
Yeah.
MSIX. Do you want to talk about that? MSIX? How do you pronounce that?
I think we said enough.
Okay. Then let's talk about Cortana and her limping.
I should have phrased this as, how do you unsink the Titanic? So, it's interesting how much Cortana news there was this week in a way, right? Because things have been kind of on a slow boil for a while. Did we mention that Harvey Saltero?
No, we haven't mentioned that yet. No.
So the man who came to Microsoft from Accompli and was running their Outlook efforts has taken over Cortana, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And did you checked with Microsoft, didn't you, did you ask who was previously in charge of Cortana?
I did. And
Directly?
They said he's taking a role that did not exist before. So he's
there
manager.
Was no one directly responsible for Cortana.
Well, there was an engineering director of Cortana who is still Andrew Schulman. He still is that person. But they said there was nobody who was responsible all up for product.
It's amazing.
I'm not sure that's true, to be honest. I think Derek Connell, who used to run Bing and Cortana, who's on a long sabbatical, is the one who Javier Soltero replaced, but they say no.
One of the issues for Cortana is that it doesn't belong to anything, right? Cortana has to be everywhere for it to be successful, and there are groups, teams, or whatever, that are putting out Cortana apps on mobile platforms. Cortana is integrated into Windows 10. You can get Cortana capabilities inside of other apps. They're adding that to Outlook Mobile, for example. Cortana works with and is based on Bing and so forth and other Microsoft Cloud technologies. But, even within Microsoft, it's kind of hard. Terry Myerson runs Windows. Terry Myerson does not run Cortana, but Cortana is part of his product. And how do you make all this stuff kind of make sense? One of the weird things that came out this week is that Cortana is going to work a little differently on every platform it's on. Some capabilities will only be available on some endpoints, and obviously there are examples of things that only make sense to be on certain endpoints, but I'm not talking about that kind of thing. For example, as of today, I think you can sort of control your email, get email read to you and so forth from Cortana, but only if you're using Windows 10 or an Invoke speaker.
I got to tell you my experience on that.
Oh, did you try it?
Yes.
Oh, what happened?
So I have a Harman Kardon speaker here. And so I was watching the Windows Insider Mixer podcast where the team from Cortana was talking about, you can just ask if did I get any emails from the past 24 hours or whatever, and Cortana will tell you who they're from, and she'll read them to you. So I'm like, oh, let me try this. I didn't know you could do this. So I went in and tried it on my speaker, and nothing. So then I tried sending myself an email. Nope. Then I tried sending myself an email from a different account, and after a little while, it showed up, and Cortana recognized it. So I'm like, it sort of works. It sort of half works. And then it says, would you like to respond?
That's exactly, you said that almost exact phrase to me. It sort of half works.
Yeah. It sort of half works. But then it said to me, would you like to respond to this email? And I'm like, yes. And it said, sorry, I can't do that. And
so that's the half that doesn't work.
Well, and just getting it to recognize it too was.
Can you just say her name without saying hey in front of it? Does that work?
You can. You can now.
Do that.
And I stumbled onto that recently because I just said Cortana and it turned on my speaker and I'm like, wait, I didn't say hey.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a bug. I thought it was a bug. I didn't think it was a feature.
Right. That's good. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Oh, and then the other thing they said in the Insider podcast this week was I submitted a question and I said, so what's going on with that Alexa Cortana integration?
Yes. Yeah.
And the answer is they're still in quote self-hosting and trying it out inside the company, and there's still no ETA when this will show up. But it makes me think that's the reason they took the hey off the greeting, because they need it to be parallel with what goes on with Alexa, right? So just a guess.
Right. Not to mention making it less ponderous, because we're already going to be constructing these compound sentences for the cross assistant work.
Right. Yeah. So there's nothing new to report except that it's not dead. The Cortana Alexa partnership is not dead. It's still going on. They're still trying to bring it to market. No, because they just went silent, right? Like they announced this last summer. It was supposed to show up in product before the end of the year, and then that passed, and now we're in March, and there's still no ETA, right? So I was wondering if they canceled it, but it's not canceled, I guess. So yeah, the work on Cortana goes on.
Yes. I mean,
although, you know what? Putting Javier Soltero in charge of it gives me a little more hope, because he's done a lot of good work at Microsoft in terms of bringing all the Outlook capabilities across different platforms. So he seems to have this cross-platform thing down, and he seems to know how to negotiate the Microsoft waters pretty well. So,
and they face the same problems Cortana does. It's a group working on a product that has to be here, all over the place. Right. Okay. I like him too. He's a good guy. I wish him luck. I hope this is not a career-limiting move, but we'll see.
Yeah. So there you have it. Cortana moves forward.
Any Xbox news, Paul, or you just want to just move right along?
I didn't add any Xbox news.
I know.
How did I forget to do that?
You need a template or something, so you don't leave important.
You've got it in your.
When does Sea of Thieves come out? Because that's when I want to take some time off.
Oh, that's happening soon.
I know.
State of Decay 2 is available for pre-release.
That sounds like a dental problem. I'm not sure I want to play that game.
No, it's a zombie problem.
They do decay.
Yeah, that's happening soon. That's about not really.
It doesn't even matter to you, doesn't it? Because you're never gonna stop playing Call of Duty.
Well, the map pack came out.
Did you like that
week,
new map? You like the Resistance? Are you playing the Resistance?
Yeah. That
looks like fun. I love wandering around Paris, looking at the sights, then some dang Nazi shoots at you, and you got to fight.
Yeah. That map is a remake of one that was in Modern Warfare 3, and it's kind of a big favorite. And it's it's beautiful. I love remakes of maps that you remember.
Yeah,
like the little strategies you had to do it, like they all work, and I enjoy that kind of thing.
Do you? Would you do me this favor and remind me? Sea of Thieves comes out March 20th.
Over the next, remind you?
Just remind me over the next couple of weeks not to buy it. I keep hovering over. Oh, I can't. I'm on a pre-order. Oh, I don't need to because I did that thing. Whatever the.
Oh, Leo, I can give you Sea of Thieves. I think.
No, I don't need it because I have that monthly. What is that? The thing, the Microsoft Game Pass.
Yep, that's how I got the original State of Decay. It was on Game Pass.
So that's my problem is I keep forgetting I don't have to buy it.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? I'd be throwing away $60 for no good reason.
I think I have a code.
So I could play State of Decay then.
I can send you a code.
I don't need a code. I have Game Pass.
But it will work forever. Like if you don't have Game Pass.
Oh, work forever. That's important. Yeah, send me a code if you have a code. I would love a code. Yeah, well, that's what worries me because I see on Game Pass all the time. Oh, we're taking this game off or we're taking that game off. And what if I still want to play Diablo 3 or whatever?
Sure.
Sometimes I play games as you do for a long time. But most of the time lately, ever since I turned 25, I really stopped playing after the first few levels. So
I just play the same levels over and over and over.
I'm excited about Sea of Thieves. I don't know why. State of Decay 2. Mm-hmm. The new State of Decay.
Yeah. Even more decay.
It's more decay.
It's even more decay, yeah.
But that doesn't come out till May 22nd.
I know, that's a long wait. So I downloaded the original one just to kind of look at that again. I guess I had looked at it before. I don't really remember it. But
see, I goaded Paul into doing an Xbox segment, Mary Jo, even with that.
Thanks.
Sorry. I don't know why there's nothing.
That's okay. No. Let's take a little time out.
He's got a pick. Come on,
he's got a pick that's got a little X in it. I want to wrap this up because I got to get to the airport.
Right.
So let me quickly mention our sponsor, then we'll do the back of the book. Our show today brought to you by Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans. This is a red letter day. Earlier I mentioned WordPress has now hit 30% of all websites in the world. Quicken Loans, I just found out, is now the #1 lender in the country. I've always said #1 in your hearts because #1 in customer satisfaction, according to J.D. Power, for 8 years running. But now Quicken Loans is literally the #1 lender in the country. They surpassed the bank, the one with the horses and the stagecoach and all that. They passed the bank. They're bigger. And I want to take a little bit of credit for it because for the last couple of years, I've been telling you about Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans and encouraging you to try them. Quicken Loans is, I think, deservedly #1 because they have this. They're a great company, really well run. They've got, I think, a great philosophy of life. They're revitalizing Detroit. It's becoming the new Silicon Valley. I was just reading an article about Silicon Valley startups kind of moving to Detroit, and I think you can credit Quicken Loans for that. But they also understand us geeks. They know we want to do everything fast and easy and online. And they were thinking about the mortgage approval process as in the way that big bank used to do it, actually still does it, where you have, first of all, you got to get dressed up and you go in and you meet the banker, the mortgage lender. And then she gives you a stack of paperwork application you got to fill out, pages after page after page. And you probably have to take it back home because you've got to do some research. You've got to call your bank, get old bank statements. You got to remember all the addresses of your previous employers. It goes on and on and on. And then you give it to them and they go through it and then they come back to you. This is what happened to us when we bought our house from the people with the Stagecoach last 4 years ago now. They kept coming back. They said, could you fax us something else? Could you fax us this? Could you fax us that? It's endless. Took us months to get our last home loan. Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans, they've completely reinvented the whole thing. First of all, the entire mortgage approval process is online. No going anywhere. Not even your attic for paperwork or your desk drawer. No. First thing you do is you fire it up. You can do this on your phone, your tablet, your desktop. Go to rocketmortgage.com/Windows. Follow along with me, why don't you? I'll do it right now. rocketmortgage.com/Windows. Create an account and then answer questions, some simple questions that you already know. Name, address, the basics. Birth date, social, that kind of thing. Then because they have relationships, they're the biggest lender in the country. Did I mention that? They have relationships with all of the big financial institutions, so they don't have to actually get you to find anything or call them or anything. All you have to do is give permission. They'll pull the information they need. As long as you give them permission, they crunch the numbers. Then, based on your income, your assets, and your credit, you could just sign in and create an account and do all this right now. They will come back with loans for which you qualify. You pick the rate, the term, the down payment. So it's it's completely transparent. You know exactly what you're getting. And then they say, approved. And all of that took, 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops. Like you could do it at an open house. You're looking around. You go in the open house. We should buy this. You start it. In fact, that's why I want you to go there right now, rocketmortgage.com/Windows, create the account. And that way you'll be ready to go. And you say, oh, yeah, let's buy this house. Before you leave, you can show the realtor, we want to make an offer because, look, we're approved. We're approved for the loan for this amount. It's awesome. Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans. You'll apply simply, you'll understand fully, and you'll mortgage confidently. Go to, again, rocketmortgage.com/Windows. rocketmortgage.com/Windows. They're an equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, and MLS, consumeraccess.org, number 3030. rocketmortgage.com/Windows. It's a great system. They've completely transformed it. And congratulations to Quicken Loans for becoming the #1 lender in the nation. And now, #1 in our hearts, Paul Thurrott, with his pick of the week.
So Microsoft this week released what is essentially RS4 for the Xbox One to insiders for the first time, so pre-release versions. They're calling it the Spring Update, which should send a shudder down anyone's back if you're worried about what Microsoft might call the Windows 10 RS4 update. Uh-oh. It's a possibility. And key among the new features in this release is support for 1440p displays. And we knew this was coming at some point, but now that we can see how it works, we have a little bit more information about it. And the best news is that it actually works on Xbox One S as well. You don't have to have an X. But if you do have an X, you've probably downloaded 4K assets for your games. It will down sample, is that the right word, to a 1440p display. So if you have such a thing, it will basically look better than it would on a 1080p display. So I happen to have one. That's what I use on my Xbox. So basically it's been in 1080p mode until this past week. And nice. Yeah, I have seen no difference at all, I have to say, in Call of Duty. But
never mind.
But I think the reason is I'm playing multiplayer, and multiplayer is going to be honed for performance, and you're not going to see a big graphical difference there. So I'll need to start. What I need to do is get into games, take some screenshots, revert to 1080p, take some screenshots, and compare it. But anyway, this is something that will be coming in the spring update soon to everybody, and Insider Fast if you are on that today. Completely unrelated to that, Sonos used to support Audible, and then that support went away for years, if I'm not mistaken, and this week it came back all of a sudden, and that's great. Sonos is, I have some Sonos equipment. I've kind of gone over to just Chromecast for various reasons, mostly cost, but apparently Sonos is going to be adding Google Assistant support soon, and that would basically make it a Chromecast, and maybe I could get back into this environment. But
so I have a Sonos One, which you can talk to with Amazon's Echo.
Yep.
Can I ask for Audible books with it?
Yeah, now that's there.
Oh my God, that's huge.
I know, it's big stuff. So that just happened, I think, today.
Hallelujah. That's fantastic.
That was one of my many issues with Sonos, although for whatever it's worth, the Audible app doesn't support Chromecast either. So I have to use a workworkaround to play, but you can play Audible through Chromecast.
You can.
You just have to, you can. You have to use
the audio
casting.
Yeah. That's kind of a pain.
So I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, Audible's on Sonos. So good to know.
Nice. Very good news.
And then we mentioned that that second RS5 build that Microsoft released today has sets in it. If you don't want to get on, if you can't get on it, because a lot of people can't, or don't want to run a pre-release version of Windows, which is normal, Stardock has something called Groupy. And Groupy is available as a standalone application for, I think, $19.99, or you can get it as part of Object Desktop, which is what I did. But they just updated this week. I got to bring this up because I forget what the second of the new features are. But it has two major new features, and they are, so you can actually, and this is something Set still doesn't do, you can actually save group windows as a set, if you will. They don't use that word, but so that you can bring them back together. That's actually really useful. And when you think about something like virtual desktops, which are available in Windows 10, but are something really only a power user would use, I think even those users would agree, it'd be really nice if we could have Windows remember those virtual desktops. So when I came up again after a reboot or whatever, I could just click a button and have all that stuff happen in its own virtual window. So they're doing that for these grouped windows. They're also allowing you to sort tabs by task or function, and drag and drop them around so you can change the position and so forth. So they basically just updated it to version 1.1. I'm sorry, it's $9.99, not $19.99. Anyway, it's like Sets, but you don't have to wait, and it actually works with everything, unlike Microsoft's feeble attempt.
I thought they didn't even is that grouping now available in I thought they took it out of the fall or the spring creators update.
They did. So so it's only available to people who are in the Windows Insider program who got into Skip Ahead. You're not allowed to get into it anymore, and then you skip ahead to the RS5 build. So in the very latest build that came out today, they've reintroduced Sets. It only works with a select group of Microsoft, what they're calling first-party applications, including some Win32 apps. That was one of the issues they had in the version they were hoping to put into RS4. It was not going to work with Win32 apps. So they're getting there. They're catching right up with Stardock, those guys. They get some good engineers over there at Microsoft. Yeah. I'm sure they'll be fine.
Yeah, any day now. Good. I paid for Groupy ages ago. I will update it.
Yeah. Grab the update.
Nice. Mary Jo Foley, I'm sure you have something fascinating for your enterprise pick of the week.
Oh, I do.
Oh,
especially,
yes, I do.
Especially if you're a government user. This week, Microsoft announced Microsoft 365 for government. So we already know about things like Microsoft 365 for business and enterprise, but even for nonprofit, there are all these different flavors of this, and as a reminder, what is Microsoft 365? It's Windows 10 plus Office 365 plus enterprise mobility and security features. So now, if you're a government user, if you're in the DoD cloud or what else do they call them? Government Community Cloud, or what's the other one they've got? GCC High, and DoD Cloud. There are 3 different government clouds. If you're in any of those clouds, you already have access to Microsoft 365 for government. It was turned on, I guess, on March 1st. The other thing that's coming soon is Azure Stack for government. And Azure Stack is Microsoft's hybrid cloud appliance where you get a lot of a lot of the features of Azure preloaded on certain servers from a handful of third-party vendors, so that you can run something that looks like Azure on premises in your own environment. That is coming for government users sometime soon. The other thing we don't exactly know when it's coming is Teams, Microsoft Teams for government, but we think it will be relatively soon. There was some talk of it being April, and then Microsoft said, actually, it's not April. It's as soon as we can make it available. So I think you're going to see it in the next couple months. That would be my guess. But that's the one piece of 365 that's not there yet for government customers that they are eagerly awaiting based on how many times they asked me about it. So that's enterprise pick. Yay.
And now you also have an education enterprise pick.
Yeah. So I was looking for another enterprise pick, but then I remember we didn't talk about Azure for Students yet. And that's a new program that Microsoft introduced this week. They already had this thing. Whoop, Sriracha. No.
Bad cat.
We already had something that they called DreamSpark a long time ago. Then they renamed it as Imagine. They added an Azure benefit.
Oh my.
Hey.
Oh boy.
Hey.
Oh boy.
Hold on. I gotta throw something.
Something bad's happening. Hold on.
Bad cat.
Wow.
Yeah. They added a new version of their Azure program for students, and it's just simply called Azure for Students. It's for university students 18 plus years or older. And what you get is for free access to a lot of different Azure services. A lot of these are AI services, but there are other kinds too. You don't even need a credit card. And I've got a link on my site to the FAQ and how you can sign up and get Azure if you're a university student to try it out up to a certain limit for free. And you get $100 in credit to be used as part of the benefit.
Lovely.
So pretty cool if you're a university student.
Very, very lovely. Very, very lovely. I think you dudes have done such a good job. It'd probably be a nice time to have a beer.
It would. And why not one?
I had a hen house saison last night, and I thought, why am I drinking this when I could be drinking something a little farther north?
Yes.
A little farther
Is there a
north.
Frozen ice beer that we could perhaps have?
I know. Need that, right?
This is a local beer Mary Jo's picking.
Local for you.
Yeah.
Yep. Russian River Brewing. We've been there. Paul's been there. I've been there.
They're the
You've been there,
creators
I'm sure.
of Pliny, of course.
Yes. And they make a lot of other really good beers. They make a beer called Damnation, which is a Belgian strong, some people call it a Belgian strong pale or a Belgian strong golden. It's like 7+%. And it tastes like a Belgian ale. So it's got all those nice banana clove tastes. And it's very delicious. Out here on the East Coast, the only city you can get Russian River beer on tap in is Philadelphia. And I was in Philadelphia this weekend, so of course I got to drink one, which was amazing.
So there you go, a Belgian style.
Only in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think it's something like the brewer's wife is from Philadelphia, or there's some Philadelphia connection. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. Delicious. If you like Belgian beers, and who doesn't, Russian River makes some very good ones. I'm just talking to Suraj. He's like right on the other side of my computer looking at me with a very mischievous
Mama,
face.
It's after 4 in the afternoon. It's time to get off the radio.
I think she's triggered by the sound of your voice. Like my cat does this here as well. If I talk, like when I do the Duolingo app and I'm speaking,
see him there.
The cat comes running over. She thinks I'm talking to her.
What are you up to? Oh, that's it. He's giving us a look.
Yeah,
he's on my
that thing. That's what she's saying.
I think I don't like you.
Just go to sleep and I'll take care of this problem.
Yes. I should send Mary Jo the article I just read about how if cats were bigger, they'd probably eat us.
Yeah,
he would.
Exactly. Yeah. I've always thought that. Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, he would.
My cat is always like, fall asleep, fat man. We can take care of this. Yep. There's no doubt about it.
I am about to rush down to SFO because I want to fly to Austin. We're going to be doing a little meetup. I wish you guys could come at Friedman's Barbecue Tomorrow evening, 5:30 to 7:30. It's no host, so come by and look for the guy with barbecue sauce all over his face. That'll be me, bathing in the stuff. And then Friday, March 9th, from 8:30 in the morning on, Stacey Higginbotham and I and some security wizards are going to be chewing the fat on security and, most importantly, consumer security, what consumers should really be worried about and what they can do about it. And that's part of South by Southwest Festival, which commences, the Interactive Festival commences, I think, tomorrow or Friday. We're one of the first events. We want to thank Capital One. They invited us down there to do the panel at the Capital One house, which is Antone's. So Antone's in New Orleans, if only. Austin's the next best thing. Antone's in Austin, 8:30 a.m. Friday the 9th. Please come by. You don't have to have a South by badge to attend, and would love to see you either at the meetup or the panel or both. And for listeners who can't be there live, we will be putting the panel out as a Twitch special, so you'll be able to hear it a little later on this week. And I will be back here with Paul and Mary Jo next Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Our clocks spring forward on the weekend.
Oh, is that this weekend?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So instead of our normal 1900 UTC, we'll be at 1800 UTC.
Here we go again. I can't keep track of this.
I know. It's so confusing. So change the batteries in your smoke detector, set your clock forward an hour, and join us at 11 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time next week. If you want to watch live, that's at twit.tv/live. If you do watch live, please join us in the chat room where the argument rages over whether WSL really is Linux. Right. It continues. I think we dropped that. But you're more than welcome. irc.twit.tv. If you'd like to be in studio, watch any of our shows, that's great. We have an open studio, but you do need to email us ahead of time. Tickets at twit.tv. There's no charge for that. And, of course, all of our shows are available after the fact on demand, audio and video from our website, twit.tv/WW in this case, or wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe. That way you'll get each show the minute it's available. You get pushed right to you. Paul Thurrott is at thurrott.com. That's his site for all the latest Windows news and Xbox and stuff. He also writes books. He's working on the update to I presume it's the update to the Field Guide to Windows 10, and for the Spring Creators Update, and that'll be at leanpub.com.
Yeah,
you get the posters too, which is great. Absolutely, get the posters.
Yep. Yeah, Martin makes those amazing,
beautiful
posters.
Yep, suitable for framing, as they say. Or print them on glass with fracture. That's what I should do. Send me the files. I'll get them. I'll print them up on glass and put them on. That would be kind of cool. Mary Jo Foley is at ZDNet. Allaboutmicrosoft.com is her home on the internet. And I thank you both for being here. We'll see you next time on Windows Weekly.